We are growing.
Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Stores brings you Garage Logic podcast number 1427, November 15th, 2024. 69 degrees was the record high on this day. That was in 1953. More about that in a moment.
Oh, good.
It was 1 degree on this day for a low, and that was on 3 occasions, 1911, 1932, and 1940. Why don't you do the intro, and then I'll come back to this.
Well, there's
Hail
more.
the flashlight king.
And now, from the mayor's office above the boathouse on the
Quality
east
show
shore
here.
of Spoon Lake, it's Garage Logic with Chris Reavers manning Technology Corner, Kenny Olson from the Krabby Coffee Shop, John Haidt in the newsroom, and of course, the Rookie. Here is your flashlight king, fireworks commissioner, and the keeper of common sense, your mayor, Joe Soucheray.
I noted that the last 70-degree recording on this day in this neck of the woods was 71 degrees on November 17th, 1953. That's this Sunday is the 17th.
Okay.
And then I thought, well, look at 53 really had a little heat wave going there. On this day in 1953, it was 69. And then on this day tomorrow in 1953, the 16th, it was 68. And then on the 17th in 1953, it was 71. And that's our last recorded 70 for the calendar year, is November 17th. So I called John and said, let's see if they were hysterical back in 1953, which is 71 years ago. How was it treated? And John Haidt is now going to go to his microphone.
The days of the 16th and the 18th were covered just as it's warm outside. We got some nice heat going on.
Yeah.
The 17th, also the same way on the front page.
Right.
But then when you go to the local, there is a story that says, heat's on. Will we live to feel it?
Oh.
Written by the Minneapolis Star staff writer, Bob Murphy.
All right.
And it's a very lengthy story, but I'll just give you the...
Why don't you just give us the
gist of it.
bullet points?
He says, and I love this intro, and I don't know who James is, but his lead is, it won't be necessary to clock the temperature by hours, James, unless you're low on antifreeze or the tea roses are insufficiently herricked against the winter. But a man says it's getting warmer.
It's a nice
this
piece of
fellow's
writing.
name-
I have no idea what it meant.
Yeah, and who's James?
Yeah, and what's herricked?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be barracked. It's kind of hard to read here.
Yeah.
But even that's an odd word to use at this point.
Well, maybe it just means barracked and the roses were put away for the winter.
Yeah, you haven't saved him. William J. Baxter of New York is the fella. He had a new book out called Today's Revolution in Weather. His theory is that the heat zone is moving northward and the winters are getting milder with less snowfall.
Really?
And and there's a lot. For instance, he says Lake Wanonskapamuk,
Whatever.
which is apparently it failed to freeze last winter. So he said that's proof of what he's saying. And the turkey vulture, he said, has been observed as far north as upper Minnesota. The mourning dove has moved at least 100 miles north of Edmonton, Canada for the first time ever. Years ago, he wrote, when he used to go to Minneapolis, he thought the climate not fit for man nor beast.
Mm-hmm.
He does say it's getting better, though, now. And he said, here's the part where he starts to lose some folks, I think, probably. Within 10 years, remember this was 1953,
Right.
he predicts Canada, with a fraction of the population of the U.S., will pass the U.S. in production of wheat,
That didn't happen.
which didn't happen, I don't
No.
think, yeah. And he also makes other things. And he's not a meteorologist, it points out in this story. As I said, it's a pretty lengthy story. He's not a meteorologist, but there is an answer from a meteorologist who says, well, this has been 4 years, we've been warm, so what? We literally have to go through hundreds of years to see if this is any kind of pattern or if it actually shows climate change in the world.
Well, I find that fascinating, and the conclusion I can draw from that is, so 71 years ago, you had a guy positing the idea that the world was warming. So what that tells me is that probably you could have gone back to 1820 and you would have found someone hectoring the public on the public square saying, hey, it's getting warmer or it's getting colder. In other words, maybe it's an age-old pursuit of humankind to question.
I don't think
to question the conditions of your life. And then, so this Bob Murphy, whoever he was, he got a bee in his bonnet to say, well, this is pretty weird that we have 3 straight warm days in 1953 at this late in the year, when it turns out it's not weird at all. We had a non-winter in the 19th century. We talked about that last year. I just find that fascinating because nothing the guy said came true. Wheat production in Canada did not surpass the U.S. by 1963. He said 10 years, and whatever else he said. So, go back to Sherwood Forest and maybe Robin Hood was.
But back then they weren't concerned with the climate changing. When do you think they really started to pay? I'd even say in the early 1900s they weren't.
Well, maybe it's as simple as people acknowledging the fact that the climate has always changed and always will.
But my point is, I don't think people were concerned with it.
No,
way back.
they weren't blaming themselves. It had not become a religion.
Right.
And they didn't find a way to profit on it until recently.
Right. Throw some money at
Exactly.
it.
To Bob Murphy's credit, the reporter that wrote this story, if you continue to read, it's continued on another page, and he goes back like Mr. Souchere does, and points out different things through the history of the world, literally, not just the history of the U.S., where things have changed and things haven't changed. So it's pretty interesting. And the other interesting thing about newspapers in that day and age, that first story was on page 27. It was continued on page 31. Guess what page 28, 29, and 30 were?
I don't want ads.
They were all full page ads, not want ads, full page ads for stores. Every one of them.
Well, what's even better than that is you're citing a story that was in the local section. That's an evening paper with a main section and a local section. Those days are long gone.
Yeah.
But they had a building.
They had their own building.
Right.
Full. I'm
Probably
sorry.
had
All
a
those
parking
pages
lot and
are all,
everything.
Speaking
all
of,
3 of those pages are Dayton's.
Oh,
ads.
sure.
All
At this
3
time of year,
full page ads.
At this time of year in 1953, I bet Dayton's put on quite the window show for Christmas.
For sure.
And it was just, and the downtown was actually functioning. It was safe. It was real. St. Paul used to have the beautiful Christmas decorations that went across the street.
Yep.
Those got tossed by the wayside years ago. Yesterday, when I left the show, I had it in my mind to, let me start over. Yesterday, the lead story, one of the lead stories in the Pioneer Press was this unfortunate glut of vacancies in downtown St. Paul office buildings. And I'm always reminded that was yet another reason why Walz's $1 billion new state office building was so unnecessary. These hypocrites could have put their money where their mouth is and walked 6 blocks downtown and had an entire building, and that would have bolstered the lunchtime economy and brightened up downtown with all those people there. But no, they're building a new office building. So I thought, well, maybe I'll make one more pitch. Walz could even redeem himself in some eyes economically by saying, put that office building to a screeching halt. We're going to move people downtown to all these buildings, and that'll be much cheaper than us building a new building. So I went down to the Capitol yesterday afternoon, and unfortunately the new office building is too far underway to put the brakes on.
what's around it? Is it
just
mostly
on
residential?
it's on the northwest corner of the state capitol grounds.
Okay.
And the big columns are in, and,
Sure.
and the dirt's been moved and bulldozers and the whole deal. So it would be unlikely that, especially Walz, would not come to his senses. But they could have come to their senses a year ago and said, no, this is unnecessary. We don't need a new state office building. So anyway, I didn't do that. Where was I?
You were mentioning that the building. Can I share something with you very quickly? Our guest on Tuesday, Liz Collin, snickered at the fact that Alpha News has a building, but yet the Pioneer Press doesn't.
Right.
She did send me a text this morning, and she said, if you see Joe today, with the laugh emoji, please tell him that we ran into his much younger brother last night.
I don't know. I can't see that far
That's
away.
Johnny with Mr. Kroll and Liz Collin last night at an event.
I bet they were at the same. Were they at a wake?
Well, I don't know.
I think Paul had to go to a wake.
Okay.
Huh.
That's John, right?
My much younger brother?
Yeah.
He looks like my dad. Say, joining the show
Maybe
today.
they're putting together the village, and they went over for some sandwiches and some coffee.
Joining the show today is Stephen Diener. He's host of Hubbard Radio's UAP podcast, Unidentified Alien Podcast. I'm anxious to talk to this fellow. He attended the congressional hearings. I believe they were Wednesday. And then his home base is Florida. He returned home yesterday. We're going to talk to him today about what he might have learned from those congressional hearings, because there's been a dearth of news about it in the conventional news gathering institutions, who are populated probably by many people who still think that if you talk about UFOs, you're just merely a crackpot.
You're cuckoo.
You're just cuckoo. And no, we're way beyond that. It's not. There's something going on, and I don't mind learning what it is.
Well, since Trump is in the process of appointing a bunch of cabinet members, will we have a UFO department?
Yes. Yeah, Trump has expressed interest in springing all that information on us. Now, speaking of cabinet members, I have issues with RFK.
Okay.
Because what is he an expert about? He's a lawyer. I think if you hired RFK to be a cabinet member in charge of food ingredients, I'd be all for it. And have him come out and have a fireside chat once a month and say, okay, what did your kids eat this morning? Did they eat Captain Kids or whatever this breakfast cereal is?
Captain
and
Crunch.
let them read the ingredients and say, I wouldn't eat this if I were you, and here's why. This particular anthracosamine, that's derived from coal tar. And then he could say, and this ingredient's derived. But if he's going to go in and start banning research and things of this nature, that's unacceptable. Why should he be able to do that with no expertise whatsoever?
Right.
That's all I had on him.
And what role?
And now I'll get emails explaining to me why RFK is the perfect guy for this job. And to those who are going to send me those emails, go bleep yourself. If he wants to talk to me about the contents of food, I'm all on board. I'm interested in people who study processed food and warn you about why it's really a dreadful situation for you. Mm-hmm. And I watched something he said. I watched about 5 minutes of him last night giving a lecture on the chemical whose name I can't pronounce, but it's in Cheez-Its, anything with kind of a yellow color.
Yeah.
That yellow color comes from that particular chemical he was talking about. It's derived from coal tar.
Oof.
Okay.
I do like Cheez-Its.
I do too.
Yeah, they're addicting.
But aside from salt, there's not one thing from Earth in a Cheez-It. It's just, lab stuff.
Oh, boy.
Well, he's onto something with that, and I'd be interested in hearing that.
Wait a minute.
But I don't want him telling me we don't need a CDC.
I don't know if I can believe that, Joe, because I've seen the Cheez-It commercials. Where the big wheel of cheese, he's got the hat on, and he's saying, hey, there's more cheese in this Cheez-It now. Why would they lie to us?
I don't know.
That's why they don't spell cheese right.
Yeah.
Cheeze.
And why did we lose 60 trees in St. Paul? Did you see this?
Yeah.
It's bad enough that we don't have any lights at work. Street lights. The poor old town is just really on hard times. Every town in America governed by the left is in ruin. How do you like that for a generalized statement?
I did notice, too, we were taking out a bunch of them on Mississippi River.
Lights or trees?
Trees.
Let me back up. Do you know of a fellow named Ezra Klein?
It's not ringing a bell.
John, look up Ezra, E-Z-R-A, Klein, K-L-E-I-N. Ezra Klein.
I know not.
And what is the Gateway Pundit? Is that
It's a publication.
I know.
Yeah.
Is it a lefty publication? There's so many of these websites. The Gateway Pundit is featuring a piece here by Ezra Klein, who is called a liberal pundit. He's a pundit.
He's a political analyst, host of the Ezra Klein Show podcast, and New York Times sometimes columnist. He's the co-founder of Vox and was formerly the website's editor-in-charge. He has held editorial positions at the Washington Post and the American Prospect, and a regular contributor to Bloomberg News and MSNBC.
Well, that's very interesting because none other than this Ezra Klein says one of the underreported stories of the 2024 election is that people in multiple American cities threw out their leaders. Klein has figured out how bad Democrat policies are for American cities. And according to the New York columnist slams Dems over denials about crime, migrants, and inflation. New York Times columnist Ezra Klein slammed Democrats over their stubborn denials that U.S. cities are plagued with rising crime, out-of-control migration, and skyrocketing prices, saying they, meaning Democrats, need to shut the blank up. In Donald Trump's blowout victory last week, the president-elect notched a 6.5% gain in the most populous urban areas across the country, which outpaced a 3.3% swing toward Trump in suburban counties, according to the Washington Post. A voting district in Manhattan even went red for the first time in at least 10 years. The thing that surprised me least about the election was the sharp red shift in these big cities, Klein said on Pod Save America. If you just talk to anybody who lives in them, they're furious. The rage I hear from people in New York, the sense of disorder rising, not just crime, but homeless encampments, trash on the streets, people jumping turnstiles and subways, crazy people on the streets. You just talk to people and they're mad about it, Klein said. Klein effectively is admitting what we've been saying for years, we being I guess the Gateway Pundit. Democrats have utterly failed to govern major cities well, and it should come as no surprise that the country moved right. On this show, we were onto it many, many years ago by pointing out the experiences you're likely to have the closer you get to the country's tallest buildings. Mm-hmm. And the closer you get to the country's tallest buildings, the more likely you are to be led by the left. And the more likely you are to be led by the left is going to result in a dystopian look at some of these urban centers, the litter, the trash, the homeless. Because what's lacking in the liberal mindset is efficiency, competence, ethics, morality, competitiveness, entrepreneurship, achievement, and a desire to get ahead. And the cities perfectly reflect the absence of discipline in the human nature. They perfectly reflect it. I drove from here yesterday all the way down to the state capitol on University Avenue.
Wow, very rare for you.
And it's a bleep show the whole way.
It's not a pleasant sight.
It's just a bleep show the whole way.
Except True Non Bakery, where you can get the best almond croissants in town.
And past that aluminum loon we have now, there's a big loon sculpture that is yet to be thoroughly vandalized.
It's not. It's weird looking.
It's out of place. It's out of place.
It does. It feels like it's out of place.
It's out of place.
Yeah, but you know what? University Avenue always was a bit rough and tumble. It was it was a major retail thoroughfare. It was full of car dealers and Sears and Wards and
Montgomery
tire
Wards,
shops. You know, it's never been the main line in Philadelphia, for God's sake. It's always been the difference is when it was a thriving retail thoroughfare, it was thriving. Those retail establishments were thriving.
Now when you go down there, it's what?
Mattresses.
Cash your check here.
Right.
Weed shop. Cash your check here.
Yep. Sex
weed
shop.
Yeah. And my idea still is the best idea, because, of course, my ideas are the best ideas.
What was your idea again?
My idea is you put up a big neon arch sign at Lexington and University, And I don't know what was I calling it, Rook? Not Chinatown, Vietnam.
Mungtown. That's
or
what it is.
Vietnam Town, and plant more trees and have bars and restaurants, all of an ethnic nature, and neat lighting and the whole deal. And, of course, that didn't work out.
Now, that being said, the Hmong grocery stores and meat markets are thriving. So the Hmong people are going to those places. It's just not, some of those businesses aren't very attractive to the eye. They're not real worried about drawing people in with nice.
Well, some of them that were open, though, had to shut down. Like the Walmart had to close because they kept getting ripped off every 6 minutes.
Okay, Midway Chevrolet is now something else. Twin City Auto, which sold MGs on University, is now a church, one of the church of undesignated themes. I don't know what they have.
Non-believers.
What was the
Ron Saxon Ford is now, I think, a Hmong mall.
what was the
There was
dealership
Buick dealerships.
on Fairview that had the car up on the, remember, University in
Midway Ford.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, and they're now
Okay.
in Roseville. Yeah. And I don't know what's in the place of Midway Ford. Is it the Presbyterian Homes, maybe? I don't know.
It must be. It
I
must
don't
be.
know.
It
I
must
don't
be.
know. Say more than 3,000 people have voted at the center of the American Experiment's Golden Turkey Awards. And the new state flag continues to garner the most votes for a waste of government spending, 53%. Now, that surprises. It doesn't surprise me that people are disappointed in the new flag. But in terms of ridiculous money spent, that was nothing.
Yeah.
Compared to Walls's DEI employees and the National Loon Center and the food frauds
Right.
and everything else, the new state flag was a drop in the bucket. I think what people are opposed to is the ideological mistake the state made. But, you vote the way you want for the golden turkey.
Right.
Big trophy at the end.
Right.
Wall's DEI employees comes in second at 41% of voters. National Loon Center, 3%. Dungeons and Dragons podcast, 3%. I asked you to look that up, and you failed me miserably.
It was just a Dungeons and Dragons. There was really nothing more.
But apparently the state of Minnesota paid somebody $10,000.
Yeah, it was from the Minnesota State Arts Board. They got a $10,000 grant
To do what?
to do the podcast. It wasn't to do anything specifically because the guy addressed it on a YouTube video, but he didn't go into it.
I see.
That was the only time they addressed the grant.
The 2024 center of the American Experiment Golden Turkey Award winner will be announced right here on this platform in GL on Wednesday, November 27. I hope that means we get to present the trophy, because there is going to be a trophy this year, and going forward, all winners will have their names permanently engraved in the trophy. You have plenty of time to vote. You're voting for the most ridiculous spending in Minnesota state government. That's not an easy job.
I have info. $10,000 to a gentleman in Duluth to produce 4 live Dungeons and Dragons podcast episodes throughout greater Minnesota.
So does that mean that each podcast is worth $2,500?
I wonder why that would be, because
You can set up a podcast with a microphone and an Audacity.
According to his
10,000,
application,
that's more than we make.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Let's apply for the grant.
according to his application, these live events will be free to the public, continuing a 5-year storyline. Yeah.
What does that mean?
There are people playing, I think, because I'm looking here. There's dozens of Dungeons and Dragons podcasts where they actually play the game, and that's what they're podcasting.
I bet you would lose to them, too. If they were up for Marconi, I bet you would lose to them.
I'd be second.
Yeah,
I'd be
second
second.
place.
Go to AmericanExperiment.org. That's one word. AmericanExperiment.org/Golden Turkey.
It's the end of the world as we know it, and he feels fine. Joe Souchere.
Stephen Diener is joining us. He is joining us from West Palm Beach, Florida, where he is the host of the, what do you call it, Stephen? The Unidentified Alien Podcast. And you attended yesterday, or Wednesday, the congressional hearings. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was a surreal moment. First of all, thanks for having me, guys. I know,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been a, I guess, long distance admirer of what you guys have done over the years. A fantastic job over the years. So it's an honor to be on here with you today. And I'm glad you're interested in the subject, because sometimes I feel like I'm the creepy guy alone in his basement, just trying to see if anyone's going to listen to me.
Well,
So-
let's talk
The
about
current
that.
Albert, what's his name?
Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Until recently, talking about UFOs was considered the sign of crack pottery. But too many intelligent, credited people are talking about it. I remember a story that was in Rolling Stone magazine in the early 70s. I've mentioned these guys before. It was 3 fishermen sitting on a dock in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and said they were abducted. And it was a long, long piece in Rolling Stone. I'd have to go back and reread it, but I would bet my suspicion would be that it was of a mocking tone, that they were having fun with it. Now you've got Navy pilots and military veterans talking about this. So there's something going on.
That's exactly right. And you're right about that story. It's a famous story out of Mississippi in the 70s. And just to kind of put it together with your original question, Joe, the stigma, right? You talk about the crack pottery.
Yes.
It really is. It's come out of that, which is great to see because of these congressional hearings. So this was actually the second congressional hearing there. The first one happened last summer, 2023. David Grush, who was, he was part of the Air Force and really like ahead of this secret division that was investigating these things. And through his investigations and conversations, he came across a lot of information that showed unequivocally in his summation that this is all real. Aliens, alien bodies, recovery of crafts, reverse engineer technology. And he testified to that under oath. And now that was last year. This year, just a couple days ago, I was fortunate enough to be on Capitol Hill, not as a witness, but to witness this happening with the 4 witnesses who were on the stand, again, under oath. And one of them, I guess most famously, is Lou Elizondo, who was the head of the Pentagon division called ATIP. It's no longer around. This division was so secret, guys, it wasn't even acknowledged up until a few years ago that this thing even existed. And their job was to investigate UFOs and the claims of it, not only from civilians, but from Air Force pilots, Navy crewmen, shipmen, everybody who were seeing these things within the military. What ended up happening with Lou Elizondo, which is what kind of took him down the path to testify in front of Congress under oath just a couple days ago, was that he was stymied within his own division. He was essentially handcuffed. He would come to all these different conclusions, and they would say, well, you can't really look into that. You can't go behind that door. You can't go behind that curtain.
Who was handcuffing him? Did he have superiors in this division?
That's exactly it. Superiors within the Pentagon, who were saying, you know what, we know you're being paid to look into this, but we don't really want you to, look in behind the door behind Lockheed Martin and Skunk Works and Raytheon and all these defense contracts. So he said, look, I've had enough. And he's brave enough, because it really does take courage to essentially not only put your life on the line, but your family is involved with this, your pension, which might be the least of it for some of these guys, because they do receive threats. And now it came all the way to the point where he went under oath to testify in front of Congress to say unequivocally, he answered the question, yes, when asked by Nancy Mace, can you say that these things are real? And he said, yes, this is real. They're being seen, and the reverse engineered technology is being hidden by the U.S. government.
What are we afraid of? What is the government trying to protect us from?
It's a great question. And I think that's something that people are still trying to figure out, honestly. And in my opinion, so if I can just give my opinion.
Well, you're the host of the UFO show, kid. You got to have an opinion.
Because I think it does come down to a lot of things. The biggest thing I think it comes down to is money and power, right? You kind of follow the money. And when you look at some of the names that I mentioned, that some of the players here that did get brought up during the hearing, that's just to stay on Lou Elizondo, he was not comfortable answering in an open hearing. He said he could answer some things in a closed door hearing, in a secure setting, when it comes to Lockheed and some of these other defense contractors and companies. They control a lot of these things behind the scenes when it comes to the reverse engineered technology. And I think, again, this is just my opinion, that they don't want a lot of these things getting out because they've been lying to Congress. There has not been oversight on this stuff for 80 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if it starts to come out now, that Congress starts to find out about these things that they've been lied to. Because you have to remember, Congress isn't playing dumb. These congressmen and congresswomen, they actually don't know what's going on, which is why they're having these hearings. So they've been lied to over the years.
Whose engineering is being reversed?
Well, according to the witnesses who took the stand on Wednesday, it's NHI is the new name for aliens. That's kind of like the politically correct term, non-human intelligence. And they say that we have recovered the craft of non-human intelligence, aliens that have crashed on Earth or been taken down by our own technology, even in some cases, according to some stories that has happened. It's all going down, guys. So it was surreal to be there, to sit there in this testimony and witness this happening, as even Tim Gallaudet from the Navy also testified to this as well.
Is it possible, has reverse engineering taken place? And the second part of the question would be, if it has, then humans, as we understand ourselves, apparently have been able to be smart enough to do that.
Right, and that's a great observation, because that's one of the things that's been brought up with it in the example of, if there was a cell phone, right? Like, let's say Oppenheimer was presented a cell phone in the 40s.
Right.
How would Oppenheimer or Einstein be able to reverse engineer a cell phone, right? You gave him an iPhone 12.
Right.
And now multiply that by 1 million. Right. And that's what they say that they were presented with. And I think that the best way I can put it, as far as, what do we really have? Right. I was just at an air show last week.
Right.
And I saw the F-22 Raptor was one of the airplanes that was flying. If you've never seen this thing, look it up on YouTube. The maneuverability of this thing is unbelievable, of the F-22 Raptor. That's at an air show. Okay.
Right.
Being shown to the public. And so I think to myself, if this is being shown to us at an air show and it can do, pass the sound barrier, do all these turns at 1,000 miles per hour, whatever it is, what do we have secretly in our arsenal that we are not being shown? I mean, I can only imagine. The stealth bomber wasn't revealed until Desert Storm. We had that back in the 60s. So it's just the rule of thumb is that the military is 30 years ahead of what we're seeing in the public.
Let me bounce something off you. We get many reports do make it to conventional news gathering sites that potential UFO sightings have been seen over military installations. And I've never bought that. If there's something above a military installation, I've always assumed it would be a foreign actor involved in that, because my assumption would be that if there's something out there, they're so far ahead of us that what do they care about our military? Does that make sense? In other words, I think it might be China has a drone over a military base, or Uzbekistan, but the people exploring us, they might find us amusing and what have you, but they don't need to know any military secrets because they're so far ahead of it. Is any of that make sense?
100%. And I'm so glad you brought that up. So there's two things I can speak to on that. I had to stand in line actually to get into this hearing on Wednesday morning out there in the DC cold for a couple hours to get in. And one of the guys in line with me, because they refused to talk to him, is Bob Salas. If you ever get the time to look up Bob Salas and Malmstrom Air Force Base.
All right.
This was an incident that occurred back in the 60s. Bob Salas was a soldier who was employed to work at Malmstrom Air Force Base to turn the key. and fire nuclear weapons. If it got to that point where we were going to enter into nuclear war with the Soviet Union at that point, that they were the ones to go ahead and say, all right, the order's been given, fire.
Like the opening of war games, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
It. So one night, Bob Salas is working at this base, and these strange lights are seen over the base. Now, remember, this is the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
They're thinking it's the Russians. What are these lights over our base? This is not good. All of a sudden, all of the nukes go dead. They can't do a thing. The system crashes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very bad situation. They figure they must be getting attacked by some type of advanced Russian technology, except it wasn't the Russians. The Russians and the Chinese had nothing that could do that back in the 60s. I'm not even sure if they have it now.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 60 years ago. Fast forward now, 60 years later, I speak to a guy regularly on my show who goes by the alias of Anthony Williams. He has to go by an alias because he's still active military intelligence.
All right.
But he's kind enough to come on my show and give information that he's able to give that's not classified. And some of the stories that he's told include, to your point, Joe, these large black triangle craft that have been seen flying over secret military installations that house our nukes. These are things that are not advertised, these military installations that house our nukes in Colorado and Wyoming. And these are pursued on paper. He has the reports. This man, Anthony Williams, I speak to in military intelligence, has the reports that say these giant black triangles have been pursued by U.S. Army helicopters,
Right.
trying to make contact with them, and then they zoom off. This happened last year, and it happened again in March. And it is nowhere in the news. No one talks about it. And I think that's because, according to Anthony Williams, at least he says to me, that why would you want to advertise that? What is the advantage to the U.S. Military to say, yeah, we have these things flying over our military base, and it's with impunity. We can't do a thing about it. We don't know what they are. And it's not only just the military base, but it's secret nuclear installations.
How does all of this protection, Stephen, how does all this protection change, or does it at all with the new administration?
It's really good, actually, because Trump has come out recently talking about releasing files. I'm sure you guys have seen it, where he says he's going to release the JFK files and things like that. He's also talked about releasing information on UFOs. Now, he can't do that on his own. Now, the advantage he has, if they decide to pursue it, is you have Tim Burchett, who is Republican representative from Tennessee. You have Nancy Mace, who's Republican representative from South Carolina. Both of them, and Anna Paulina Luna, Republican representative from here in Florida, where I'm at. All three of them were at this hearing asking questions on Wednesday. So the reason why I mentioned the party affiliation is because, as we know, the Republicans gain control of the House. So you have these Republican representatives who are very interested and who are pushing to find out more about this. So if they agree with Trump to say, hey, we got to release some of at least what we know, and now you have a president who has gone on record to say, I am willing to release the files. Well, as the head of the executive branch, somebody's got to listen to him, right?
Right.
So if he has the backing of Congress to go ahead and say, let's try to do this, and Marco Rubio as well, who's of course, becoming Secretary of State, he's spoken out before saying we need to figure out what these things are and if it's a threat to national security. So now he has the backing of the Senate and the Congress to say, okay, let's go ahead and release some of this information and find out more, because it's hidden from the president in some cases too.
All right, you have the show and you host it and you talk to people who you believe are credible and trustworthy. What do you believe?
I believe that there's definitely something happening where there's more than just us. And for whatever reason, these other beings, this other life finds us interesting. Whether they had a hand in our development, that's another theory altogether. How long they've been coming here? Are they coming from the oceans? Are they coming from space? Is a little bit of both. But I do believe that there is absolutely some type of intelligent life form out there that takes an interest in us. And for whatever reason, it seems like they're making themselves more known lately. And I don't know why that is, but I do find that part interesting. Absolutely.
What are we supposed to be frightened about?
I don't think
so
we
far,
do.
I'm not frightened about anything.
And I'm glad you said that, because, this is something that's people try to make people scared of this.
Mm-hmm.
There's that sensational, people try to sensationalize this and say, be afraid, be very afraid. They're going to kill us all. It's Independence Day. It's,
Yeah.
and
War of the
I don't
Worlds.
think it's that. Yeah. And I don't think it's that at all, because if it was, I think they would have done it already, right? Like, what would be stopping them? If
Right, what are
they
they
can
waiting
fly over
for?
with impunity. Yeah, exactly. So I don't think it's anything to be afraid of. My main question is, it's the why, the whys and the hows.
Mhm.
There's so much to find out about the motives of why they're here, why they fly over installations, why they're interested in us. That's really the thing. And so I'm glad you said that. I don't think there needs to be a fear factor to this. It's just a lot of questions that need to get answered, because it's there, it's happening.
But the people you've talked to have enabled you to believe without a doubt that we meaning the military in some capacity, they have captured vehicles. They have seized a vehicle or two or three or a million, whatever, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's been happening for a long time. It's actually happened before Roswell. Roswell is what we always go back to, 1947, July
Right.
1947. But there's a famous case out of Italy, the Magenta crash out of Italy, that in 1933, that David Grush, who I mentioned earlier, was the original witness who spoke at the first UAP hearings last summer. He references this case as kind of being the modern day genesis to the UFO phenomenon. It crashed in Magenta, Italy, and the Vatican actually got involved with the U.S. government and the Italian government to kind of work together on how this was going to be handled. It's a fascinating story. So 14 years before Roswell.
Isn't there, with technology, predict the next 10 years, guys have telescopes that have video on them. I mean, the private sector, not even the military, or isn't there someone that's going to catch something? And are those people out there already?
They are, to a certain extent. And it's tough, because there's a ton of videos out there, but the question is, what's photoshopped, what's
Okay.
been made on some editing software, and what are we looking at that's real? But there's videos. The videos I find fascinating are the ones that were done before the digital age,
Yeah,
where it's
me
just
too.
VHS stuff from like the 80s and 90s,
Yeah.
like the Phoenix Lights from 1997. So if I try to forecast this out 10 years, I think we're still asking questions, but I also think we've gotten more answers that are going to give us clarity, that are going to create more questions, if that makes sense.
Wow.
How can people listen to your show? What do they do?
Anywhere you get the podcast, or where you find any type of streaming platform, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, just search UAP, Unidentified Alien Podcast, and you'll see it come up there. It's so thankful for the people who do listen, and I'm thankful for you guys for having me on.
Yeah, we'll tag you on the social media post as well. With
Have
this
you
today,
ever
Stephen.
felt threatened in any way?
No.
Good.
But there were a couple of instances where I thought I was going to be threatened, but maybe I just wasn't making enough noise.
All right.
Speaking of noise, that flying saucer behind you,
That's a picture, man.
what sound does it make, or do you hear in your mind's eye? Is it going like this?
Yeah, I've always imagined like a little like that type thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
that's okay.
Are you a daily podcast?
No, I wish I could, but I do try to at least do something once a week. I'm actually working on an episode right now. I'm going to get back to as soon as I'm done with you guys. Hopefully,
All
I
right.
have something out later today.
Stephen Diener, thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
We'll
Appreciate
stay
it.
in touch.
Good luck.
It's
Man.
it's called Unidentified Alien Podcast.
There's
How
stuff
about
going on out there.
UFOs have DEI already? UFOs have.
Why do you think they have DEI?
They've renamed
Oh, yeah.
them. Their
Human-
whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Human
their new,
intelligence or
Right,
something.
right.
yeah.
Unbelievable.
All right, thank you, Stephen. All right, take a break, why don't you?
going to try that new.
Here's a man who spends hours in hardware stores, sifting through the nuts and bolts of life. Joe Souchere.
Hoffman Water. Hey, you know how great Hoffman Water is?
How great is
Crystal
it?
clear?
They are so great. They let you know, hey, dum-dum, it's time for a filter change.
So it's not brackish.
What do you mean? What does that mean?
Brackish would mean it's not clear.
It's brinish.
What happens is it slows
Hey,
down.
dummy, just say, yeah, you're right, Joe.
Yes,
It's
Joe.
clear water.
Clear, crystal clear water. So they're coming out
going
today
into
to
it.
replace the filter in both of my systems from Connecticut and Hoffman, which is the water softener and the drinking water system. And here's the deal. It's going to make an amazing difference in the quality of your water. It has for me, and it will do the same for you. But your first step has to be this. You got to get on that schedule. And here's the deal. They're getting really busy right now. So get on the schedule right now and have them come out for that water score and that free water analysis today by calling 612-895-2440, or you can visit their website, which is hoffermanwater.com. Once you get that new system installed, and it doesn't matter if you're looking for a softener, an iron rust and odor filtration system, or a brand new drinking water system, it's going to cut down on your salt usage. It's going to protect your appliances. It's going to make everything better. Your cooking, your drinking water, your laundry, your showers, everything will improve with Hoffman Water and Connecticut. 612-895-2440 or visit hoffermanwater.com. Hoffman Water has been proudly serving the state of Minnesota for over 50 years. Please mention that you heard about them here on the Garage Logic podcast.
Here's John Haidt, our own UFO expert. He sees quite a few of them up in the Anoka area.
Thank you, Joe. This news is brought to you by North American Banking Company. St. Paul leaders, including Mayor Melvin Carter and Police Chief Axel Henry, addressing a recent trend of violence throughout that city during a news conference yesterday. City officials say there have been 9 homicides in St. Paul in the last 2 months. Officials say the incidents have been driven, in their words, largely by bad decisions and guns. Drug use, drunkenness, and mental health issues, they say, have also played a role. St. Paul officers have also been involved in 3 shootings in that time, 2 resulting in the suspect's death. In all 3 cases, the person who officers shot was an active murder suspect and was armed with a gun. Those who spoke yesterday acknowledged St. Paul has made strides over the past few years in reducing overall violence and solving shooting cases, but urged people in the community to take steps to prevent further crimes. And so far in 2024, Henry said St. Paul police have recovered 556 guns and arrested 329 people who were not legally allowed to have a firearm. The chief said that's a form of prevention. We'll never know how exactly many of those guns being recovered have stopped another crime. Carter, the mayor, highlighted a number of efforts by the city to cut down on violence in the community and at home, echoing the chief's remarks that the only way intervention can happen is if someone speaks up. They can do that, he said, by calling 911. And the mayor said anyone wishing to deal with a potential crisis scenario can also call the SPPD non-emergency line at 651-291-1111. Joe, I know you don't ride the bus, but
If I
but
did,
if you did,
yeah.
It'd only be on Southwest, my guess.
And
Hit the there it is. There he goes.
I meant to give you a heads up earlier, Chris.
that's
Sorry.
okay.
Soon it'll cost you less to ride Metro Transit buses and light rail, Joe.
Good.
The Metropolitan Council approved the changes Wednesday night in a move that Metro Transit says hopes to build ridership. The lower fares apply to Metro Transit's non-express buses and light rail. All non-express buses and light rail will be $2 all day, and it'll be $1 for youth, seniors, and Medicare residents.
Almost free for you, my
Essentially,
friend.
they're getting-
Almost free.
Essentially, they're getting rid of the rush hour fares, which lowers the cost per ride anywhere from 50 cents to $1.50.
Here's the
Yes, sir.
thing, Metro Transit. I got news for you. The reason people aren't riding your horse crap transit system isn't because of the fare. It's because they don't want to get stabbed in the neck during a meth deal.
Right.
I would not want to.
Well, that's just it. They act like the fare's the thing standing in the way of the cars being empty.
No.
Leslie Kandaris, as Metro Transit's GM, says our hope is making this change is we make it easier to ride transit, making it more affordable for many people and hopefully a more attractive option. Kandaris estimates in the first year they could have nearly 1 million more rides by making the change, offsetting the cost of lowering fares.
Give that
Metro
the we
Transit
don't know
is
that.
also reducing
We don't know that.
Metro Transit also is reducing the cost of the all-day and 7-day passes. The fare changes are set to take effect January 1st of 2025. Update to a story from a couple of weeks ago. That Wisconsin police officer who was banned from substitute teaching in Minnesota after reenacting the police killing of George Floyd in the classroom is no longer with his police department. The Prescott City Council unanimously approved a separation agreement with Stephen Williams earlier this week. The agreement shows Friday. Today will be Williams' last day before he resigns in lieu of termination. Last month, the South Washington School District said it banned Williams after he made what they called repeatedly racially harmful comments, told sexist jokes, and stated that police brutality isn't real while filling in as a teacher at Woodbury High School. Teachers on Call, a private company that employs substitutes for school districts across Minnesota, fired Williams after that incident. The company said he had passed all background screens, adding it has a zero-tolerance policy for any form of violent, aggressive, or harmful behavior. Williams had joined the Prescott Police Force in July 2022 after more than 8 years in law enforcement-related positions in Montana. St. Paul police are investigating after 60 trees were pulled out of the ground. Some were thrown into the Mississippi River in St. Paul overnight Wednesday. A series of posts on X from St. Paul Parks and Rec said the trees were planted along Shepherd Road in October during MEA break in partnership with the nonprofit Tree Trust and local high school students. The department is estimating the damage to be around $40,000. A post on Facebook from Tree Trust's executive director and CEO, Jared Smith, said Tree Trust staff and workforce trainees replanted the trees yesterday, and they are working closely with the city of St. Paul to figure out their next steps.
How could that cost so much? They're just little trees. That's about $600 a tree. They're very small, little trees.
Well, yeah, I saw how small they were. Trees are expensive, but I didn't think they were
Are they that
expensive.
expensive?
You can go to
600?
Bailey Nursery or Gerton's or Bachman's, and you can get a better deal than
get
that.
a tree.
Yeah, you can get a better deal
You
than
can
that.
get a tree, for Pete's
You know,
sake.
I mean,
I know a young couple that went to New York
to get a tree,
last weekend.
Oh.
No, but remember the Wayne Gretzky Christmas tree story?
one of my favorites
Yeah.
ever.
I know a young couple that went to New York to walk the island of Manhattan. They walked the
I did see
entire
that.
island of Manhattan.
Oh, wow.
I guess that's a thing that people do. I said, do you get a certificate? No, they didn't get a. I would want
It's
an
a long
award.
walk.
I
You
would
see a
want an
lot.
award. 14 miles.
I did see that on social media.
Through about 12 different neighborhoods, and they just loved it.
Any
And
safety concerns?
They had zero safety concerns.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
14 miles, 44,000 steps.
I didn't comment on what did they eat. What was their favorite thing that
They
they
did
ate?
some sushi,
Okay, not my style.
and they did some other things. They had 2 Manhattans. They each had a Manhattan at one place.
Yeah.
Guess what the 2 Manhattans cost? And
Oh,
they
my
were
God.
cheap ass Manhattans.
30.
They weren't healthy. They
were-
were just minimal Manhattans.
$30.
For the 2 of them,
Yeah.
Reavers.
I'm going to
No,
go.
it's gonna be more than
It's
that.
going to be probably
gonna be,
the total bill is going to be 60. I bet it was 30 a piece. With tip, probably 60 total.
That's what it was with tip, about $60.
Yeah.
Wow.
It would make a man
And
stop
it was
drinking.
a lousy pour. It was
Right.
a lousy pour.
Was this
Probably
all
rail.
done in one day?
The walk was one day.
Wow, that is very
7
impressive.
hours and 30 minutes, something.
Did they walk back or take a cab?
No, the whole point, Matt, is you walk the whole way.
No, I mean
Up
when they
and back. Up and back.
up and back.
Up and back.
I thought it would just be one way. I'm like, I've seen enough.
We were just here.
I saw it across the street.
What's the Wayne Gretzky Christmas tree story? I don't know that one.
That it was somebody from Minnesota
A guy called in that lived here
goes to New York at Christmas time to sell trees.
on the same corner every year.
Okay.
And sure enough, one of his customers back in the 90s was Wayne Gretzky.
Huh.
And didn't Gretzky tell him to take it up to the apartment? Or
Yes, he went with them to take it up to the apartment.
Yeah.
And they needed a tool or something.
Yeah.
So Gretzky was going to leave. Janet was up there,
Yeah.
up in his apartment. And he goes down to see the maintenance guy to get a wrench or a hammer or a holder or whatever. And the guy's saying, I'm in Wayne Gretzky's apartment with Janet Jones, his wife, putting up a Christmas tree. And it was just, he said it was surreal.
But
And
it was
Gretzky,
all nice.
He couldn't have been nice. He was just the shucks Gretzky
Hockey
that you know.
players are good guys.
Yeah.
He is one
Just
of the
him
guys.
and Janet, huh?
Yeah, I wouldn't have done that, Wayne. Don't leave anything to chance. Hey, tree guy.
Why don't we take a quick break here and hear from Mr. Mikulski?
Now, isn't
Rookster.
it funny that I what a segue king I am. I just talked about the maintenance guy, right? Every place has to have the good maintenance guy.
Yes, you did.
That's what I equate the welter people to. They're kind of your maintenance guy of your furnace, with your got a air conditioning system you got to put away properly, the air purification systems, so much so that I'd put them up against any New York company. They've been around over 100 years, and that's 4 generations of the Welter family. Rick and the crew over there, they do a great job, and they're just as nice as Wayne Gretzky, as common sense, as casual as can be. They're not going to pressure you into anything. They're going to give you advice on what you should do with your heating unit, cooling unit. They've got those certified techs. Man, they got the great pipes today. They've got those certified techs that will inspect those pipes that you have in your home. All you need to do is set up an appointment. You may do that online at welterheating.com or call and find a human being on the other end of the line during business hours. That's 612-825-6867. We ask that you patronize those that advertise on this podcast, and Welter has been a fan for a long, long time. welterheating.com. When it gets cold, heat up your shelter with the fine folks from Ray N. Welter.
where's this?
We need to add it yet to the new design of our layout because of our YouTube channel.
Pat?
Hello?
Pat?
He found a quiet place.
Pat?
What happened here? Oh, wait, you know what? My fault. Hang tight, Patrick. That's right, because we had a previous guest on. There's Patrick.
Pat?
Yes, that'll help. Whatever you did helps. I think you can hear me now.
John Haidt had one more news story. I want you to hear it.
All right, let's go.
Sure. Throwing me under the bus now, are we? I see how this works. I was just curious if this was irony or just amusing or what this is from Fortune magazine.
Yeah.
You guys know what Grok is?
Yep.
No.
Grok is the AI. It's the AI engine for X.
All right.
The artificial
Okay,
intelligence
for Twitter,
engine for X.
okay.
And it
All right.
answers, it answers questions, et cetera, from Twitter users. Well, it's as we know, X or Twitter is owned by Elon Musk. User Gary Kepnick asked the AI which person spreads the most misinformation on Twitter or X. And guess who it said? Elon Musk.
How
How about that?
Jeez.
So
Yeah.
based on various analysis, social media, sentiment, and reports, Elon Musk has been identified as one of the most significant spreaders, it wrote. Adding, Musk has made numerous posts that have been criticized for promoting or endorsing misinformation, especially related to political events, elections, health issues, and conspiracy theories. His endorsements or interactions with content with a history of spreading misinformation have also contributed to that perception.
How do you like the Musk, Pat?
Oh, I don't know. Is he getting as big a job with Don as he expected to? There's kind of rumors out there that Don is not going to turn everything over to him as far as finances are concerned. But I will say this, though, Joe. You know, they got this Blue Sky now, this thing that's supposed to compete with Twitter.
Sure.
Yeah.
And people are lobbying with me to move to Blue Sky because I'm a lefty. And I went over there. It's a bunch of people being nice to each other, for God's sake. You know,
What's wrong with that?
What the hell's wrong?
as
That's terrible.
As I pointed out, when I put out a anti-Trump tweet, it is not intended to get accolades. It is intended to stir up the righties. It's intended to stir up the Trumper crowd and have them call me vile names
Yes.
and all. That's what I'm looking for there. I'm not going to Blue Sky, for God's sakes, and have, oh, you're right, Patrick. I don't want to be right. I want to piss them off. Okay?
Right.
Well, that's just it, Pat. You know how we always say, like, didn't you say, Joe, Mary Helen? She smoked right up into the end, right?
Yeah.
That's the same thing with Pat. Pat will still tweet right up until his death.
Right.
And then, right? Yes, that's right.
Where are you?
I'm at U.S. Bank Stadium watching the state prep semifinals. We got a very bad break here for the Orono football team. They're playing Totino Grace, which now has moved down to 4A. You know, they tried playing with the big boys and they won a couple state titles, but they don't belong there. So it's 17-7 for Grace, and they reach third down in their own territory. And the Orono folks called timeout, you know. They're going to get the ball back. There's 26 seconds to go. They're going to make them punt. Grace hands off to a kid, and he runs 64 yards for a touchdown. So they got the ball back, but it was 10 seconds late. It was with 10 seconds left, and they were down by another touchdown.
So now Grace will be in a title game.
Well, it's halftime, but they're ahead 24
halftime. I'm
7.
sorry.
If they get into a title game, it'll be against mighty Becker, and they'll probably get hammered because Becker's been good for 40 years, but this is one of their best teams ever.
Is Becker considered a suburb? It's way up there.
Yeah, but it's getting it's up there, but it's there's still open spaces between there and Elk River and some of the other places.
Yeah.
But,
Is Totino
getting
Grace that
closer.
little trade school in Fridley?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay.
It is, and they they were a football power, and then they kind of slipped down a little, but they have some athletes here the way it looks, and I think they're unbeaten this year. I was looking at the record. I should know that before I write, but I think they're unbeaten. But again, they went from 6A to 4A, and that's where they belong. So,
Are you staying for the second game?
I think I will watch some of Elk River against Who they going to play today? I did not do my proper research here coming up. Everybody's saying, what are you going to write? And I said, I don't know. Let them decide. I don't care. Let the players decide. But it looks like Grace might turn out to be a decent piece for me, right? I was up at Grace last week to see Stewartville and Holy Family, and they got the new artificial turf there and the whole deal. And Jeff Ferguson was their coach through 2019. And I said, Fergie, they waited for you to leave to put this turf field in 3 years ago. And he said they had a fellow up there named Brother Milton for years who ran the thing. And he said, as far as budgets were concerned, he was a firm believer in the fine arts, he said. Not football fields. He wanted nice place for the choir and stuff like that.
Elk River takes on the Chanhassen Storm at 2 o'clock today.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're probably underdogs there.
Most likely, I would think. Yeah, I would bet that
Although it should be a fine game, and we expect quite a crowd of Chanhassen people here. So I don't like the nickname now. I don't like singulars. Prep singulars.
I don't either.
No.
Like Heat, Magic, Storm.
Well, plus, you know what the mascot is for the Chanhassen Storm? It's
a cloud.
It's a lightning bolt.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
That's a tough costume.
Yeah, it is.
That is. Pat,
no go. A skinny person to have a lightning bolt.
Yeah, you do.
I would make a bad bolt.
No go for football, and the Vikings are on the road, I believe,
Nashville.
in Tennessee.
Yeah, Vikings. This is number 2 out of a 3-game homestand against Mutts. They beat one of those Mutts last week, despite their terrible performance, and now they got Tennessee, which is 2-7 or something like that. So, and then they got the Bears, who have hit their stride. Boy, I would have liked to have been part of that crowd leaving Soldier Field last week when the Bears put up a 3-spot. That might have been there might have been some drunks wanting to fight you in that crew.
I don't doubt it for a minute. Say,
yes,
we'll talk Monday.
All right. Well, we will. I'm going to St. John's tomorrow to see them play Bethel, much improved Bethel, and for the MIAC title. And if you want to go up there and join a tailgate about 9:30 and try to get hammered before noon, that's the place to be, fellas.
Yeah.
Pat, it'll be.
You're right.
Tomorrow's going to be gorgeous in the mid-50s with a warm, strong wind.
I sent my snowplow guy some advance money. It might have been a mistake. Maybe we will have 2 straight wonderful snowless winters, right, Kenny?
Well, we don't know where Kenny is.
Okay,
He's out
Kenny.
shooting deer or something.
Oh, he's still hunting for a deer?
Apparently.
He said if he was lucky early on, he'd join us in the later part of the week, and I guess we know what's been happening.
He wasn't lucky. He doesn't have his deer yet.
You know, as social as Kenny is with the people and his neighbors, it's got to be hard for him to just sit out there by himself on the stand, right? And
you should
grouse, being the friendly, outgoing guy he is. The others, it's kind of
Joe, tell Patrick what we learned about Kenny's neighbors in the recent days.
Well, apparently one of the neighbors is a Russian family, and they informed Kenny that if Kenny saw their dog, he was supposed to shoot it. And they also they put a dead cow at the end of the driveway, and she was bloating up pretty good. And then they also have an ostrich that runs around up there. And so
really?
we're
Mean.
questioning.
By the way, ostriches are very mean.
Yeah. Well, he didn't get orders to shoot that.
One of my fond memories of my young youth was the old man being in the ostrich races in Murray County and tipping over the cart and damn near getting eaten by the ostrich. The ostrich did not like his driver.
No.
So,
All right, thank you.
but the old man solved that by having a couple of martinis.
That's right.
All right.
Thank you. Say, I talked to
Wow.
I talked to Tim Bloom yesterday up at EcoFund Motorsports in Forest Lake. They've sold almost, what did he say? I can't remember what he said, but they have some Yamaha electric bikes left, particularly the off-road model. And if you think that's a great bike on off-road because of its suspension and its seating and what have you, can you imagine how comfortable that bike is just on smooth territory.
Hell yes.
So you don't need to, and it's great sale now, and you don't need to leave there until you get the proper fit. Take it out in the parking lot, and they'll adjust everything. Kalen's an expert, and this is the electric bike capital of the world. And there's a great year-end sale taking place at EcoFund in Forest Lake and Burnsville. And as I've told you before, it's one of the most fun recreation stores you'll ever be in, with quite an array of youth recreation equipment, motorcycles, scooters, electric bikes, helmets, apparel, snow equipment for the winter.
Got it.
4x4s, plow blades, you name it. This is a great, great fun store. It's EcoFund Motorsports in Forest Lake. It's just immediately west of 35 on 97. You can't miss it. And it's down in Burnsville on the Service Road of Life near County Road 42, EcoFundMotorsports.com.
Finally, thank God today is Friday. TGTI Friday. It's the scramble!
North American Banking Company, my bank. You know what? The official bank of Garage Logic is North American Banking Company. And here's the deal. I was tired of just being a number to my big national bank, and I wanted a switch, and that's when I walked in and met Mr. Bilski and the entire North American Banking crew, and I was blown away. Here's the thing. They take the time to get to know you, your family, and in some cases your business, and what exactly it is that you are looking for, and that's why they're the best. They have 6 locations. I go between the Roseville location and 50th in France, but you can also see them in Hastings, Woodbury, Shoreview, and also in Maple Grove. They offer the same online and mobile banking options as the other banks, but you're going to get the unparalleled service of a community bank. And North American Banking Company is also locally owned and operated, and here's why that's important. That means loan decisions are made right here in the Twin Cities. They are not sent out of state. So this helps business owners solve problems quickly and expand their business with confidence. North American Banking Company deals with numbers every single day, but you will never be one of them. So check them out online today if you'd like to learn more. It's nabankco.com, nabankco.com to learn more. It's banking done differently. North American Banking Company, member FDIC, is an equal housing lender. Joe?
There is a school in Minneapolis called the Minnesota Connections Academy. I had not heard of it.
I think I have.
But apparently they're giving kids time to mourn the election, and because they're very distraught. So apparently there's a teacher there just told them to take a day off or whatever. And
Suck their thumbs and grab their blankies.
And
I'm sure there was a number of kids that said, no, I'd rather come to school today.
But you have to mourn.
And that is why Trump got elected.
Ooh. Let me take you to Wales.
All right, let's go. Cross the big pond.
We're going to bring back that phrase, and that's why Trump got elected.
I think so.
All right.
I'm
I'm going to take you to Wales.
You should record that today with the good pipes.
And that is why Trump got elected.
Let me take you to Wales.
Where are we going?
The Welsh government. This is Wales, but it's still the reason Trump got elected.
Okay.
The Welsh government has been advised to create dog-free spaces in outdoor public areas after an anti-racist group asserted it is making black Africans feel unsafe.
And that is why Trump got elected.
The environmental group Climate, and then some Wales language spelling, has issued a report instructing the government to create dog-free areas and local green spaces to make the country more inclusive. The advice was reinforced by another group, the North Wales Africa Society, which complained that one black African woman complained that a dog made her feel uncomfortable. So there's a narrative that the UK countryside is essentially racist because ethnic minorities face barriers to the outdoors created by exclusions and racism.
And that is why Trump got elected.
Now tell me this. What is racist or exclusionary about being outside, no matter what color you are? What's the problem? You open the door and you walk outside. You're outside.
Right. Boom. You can't.
It's a boom, isn't it?
That's physically, that's where you are.
It's a boom.
Yeah.
Another focus group pointed out that the green spaces are not respected in areas where there is a bigger population of ethnic minority people. I don't know what that means. Ultimately, the Welsh government's report, which will steer future policy, concludes that people of ethnic minority background in Wales face barriers created by exclusions and racism, according to the London Telegraph. Wales government has vowed to ensure that racism is eliminated from all areas of public life by the year 2030. See, a lot of people are worried about the climate and they want to change by 2030. Wales is going to clean up the green spaces.
How do you hit the speed button on that? Can you? You really can't. It's nature.
Thanks to the UK. No, we have a chance. So they have to have public spaces where you can't have a dog because of apparently the dog suggests a racial attitude.
I don't see how. A dog is just a dog. What would that
Well, there's a history in this country of the dogs having been used for nefarious purposes, but
what's up, dog?
That's a long time ago, and I don't know what the problem is, but the longer this keeps up, that
is why Trump got elected.
And bad news for everyone who likes to spend some time in the bathroom.
Okay, this came out of nowhere. Hello.
Is like the correct word to use?
What did I say?
Well, you said that anyone that likes spending time in the bathroom.
No, we have a doctor's warning.
Okay.
That you're not supposed to sit on the john for more than 10 minutes.
Because what's going to happen?
What?
I didn't ask for this. You're the one that made me do this.
Ooh.
Well, it's quite a serious
What are
story.
you doing after 10 minutes? Setting up a TV tray, a Swanson dinner, and...
No, here's the problem. People bring their phones into the bathroom, and they're being advised by a doctor that that's wrong because what it will result in is while you're sitting there, you'll turn a 3-minute job into 15 minutes because you're going to be scrolling on your phone.
Wow.
And the medical profession is very concerned that in doing so, the prolonged sitting on the throne can harm your health because it increases the risk of hemorrhoids and weakened pelvic muscles.
And that is when Trump got elected.
Yes. And when you're sitting there, see, all those innards.
Sitting there.
That's what I said. When you're sitting there, all those innards, see, they sag.
What about if you're a big guy?
Ooh. Then they sag even more.
No wonder.
Yeah. So you shouldn't spend much time on there, according to Farah Manzoor, an assistant professor of medicine and director of the Inflammatory Bowel Disease Center.
Oof.
At Stony Brook Medicine.
That's a tough department.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
She's got a good job.
Any study on the middle stall?
See, here's the deal. It's all about physics. This is going to end up being far more interesting than you thought. Because I know you're scoffing now. I don't want to hear that again.
You can't help it.
Now here, gravity keeps us grounded on Earth, but that same gravity forces the body to work hard to pump blood back up to the heart. All right, you with me? The open, oval-shaped toilet seat compresses the buttocks, keeping the rectum in a lower position than if you were sitting on the couch. With gravity pulling the lower half of the body down, the increased pressure affects your blood circulation. It becomes a one-way value where blood enters, but blood really can't go back, Zhu said.
It's like a roach motel.
Somebody named XUE. I don't know about Dr. Lai Zhu.
Zhu, Chinese.
He's a colorectal. No.
Colorectal?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dang near killed her.
He's a colorectal surgeon at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas. So he said, when patients present me with complaints, one of the main areas we have to delve deeply into is how much time they spend in the can. That's Dr. Li Zhu said that. And then forced straining. You wanna.
Oh yeah, that's when you're really trying to work it out.
Well, we know what it means, Matt.
Remember that old Richard Pryor?
No, man. Forced straining
little
can
itty-bitty.
also increase the pressure to allow hemorrhoids to build. People scrolling on their phones on the can tend to lose track of time, sitting and straining and fighting the physics of it, and bing, bang, boom, guess what? You got the bad deal going there. You got some sagging, and the blood won't get back to the heart. And look how Elvis Presley died.
That's
for
right.
God's sakes,
See?
You know?
Who's laughing now?
It's a very unhealthy for anorectal organs and the pelvic floor.
Gotcha.
From now on, man, I'm turning this into a speed job. I'm not going to stay in there. I'm going to...
What is a speed job? Just going real quick, huh? Get right to the point.
Boy, he didn't even put his pants back on.
Get right to the point. Let's go here. Oh, heavens to
I'm good for
Murgatroyd.
that about once or twice a year.
Yeah. Thanks, Brett.
In addition to weakened muscles and forced straining, sitting on the can for too long can well, you don't want this. Can increase the risk of rectal prolapse.
Yeah.
That's
Ouch.
when
Doesn't
the
sound
rectum, which is part of the large intestine,
Yeah,
you
it's
knew
like
that,
the end,
Sure.
right?
slips
The
down
end
and
of the
hits
line
the
is when
end
the
of
buck
the line.
stops here.
Well, you can laugh all you want
buck
because you're a
stops.
child.
Yes.
But a rectal prolapse is when the rectum, part of the large intestine, slips down and bulges out the anus.
Wow.
So she's hanging there.
It's like a whole universe down there.
How do you get it back?
The dark side.
Yes, John?
Let's see how you like it. Let's see how you like this, Joe. It sure is a long story, isn't it, Joe?
It really is. Isn't it? It really is. The pelvic floor muscles are another type of muscle weakened from prolonged toilet sitting. Zhu explained that the pelvic floor. I'll quit, John, because
Remember
you're
that
right.
monkey story?
It's way too long.
Remember that monkey story?
Which one?
The one where the monkey at the zoo had the peanut stuck?
Oh, yeah, the guy went and fetched
Yeah,
it.
that was a good. I got a great idea.
Only you would think of that. Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking about, And that is why Trump got elected.
Went out and had a great meal, just a great meal. I
Yeah,
had to go to
that's
the bathroom
right.
so bad.
Okay, we've heard this before.
Thanks, George.
Only because they come to us all the way from Cleveland, Ohio, and the traveling Lymans. Well, it was on this day,
November 15th.
1851.
Long time ago.
Speaking of what we just talked about, Montezuma was founded.
Come on.
Honest to God.
You did not.
Honest to God. I didn't know it was going to be Montezuma. Montezuma was founded
Come
by...
on.
I'm not kidding you. Montezuma, sometimes known as Montezuma's Revenge, was founded by Orrin Smith, a steamboat captain. Well, did you know this?
Didn't know it.
The town is more recognizable by its present name, Winona.
You don't tell me.
And I remember that last year we had this on This Day in History.
Do we have the same story that preceded it?
No.
Okay.
Go Windhawks. Go Ramblers.
Montezuma was the original name of Winona.
I did not know that. Why did they change it? They didn't want to be affiliated with
Montezuma's
Revenge. Yeah.
On this day,
November 15th.
in 1866, Pilgrim Baptist Church was formally organized. The African American congregation, granted mission status by the First Baptist Church of St. Paul, met at various residences for a number of years before constructing a church at 13th and Cedar Streets in St. Paul. Robert Hickman was ordained 11 years later and became the congregation's official pastor. So there's an 11-year gap there where they didn't even have a
He had to do his studies.
pastor.
They weren't just throwing him in there. They wanted to make sure he knew his stuff.
They were telling everybody.
Yeah.
And finally, on this day,
11:15.
in 1880, a fire at St. Peter State Hospital, later renamed the St. Peter Regional Treatment Center, a mental asylum, killed between 10 and 15 inmates. The first mental institution in the state, the asylum, had opened on December 6, 1866. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What do you mean it killed between 10 and 15? You can't figure that out?
How many is it? That's
Well,
quite
did
a
they
difference.
not recover?
Well, I'm asking. You should know something like that. How many? Check the
It's quite
roster.
a range. Yeah, it's quite a range.
Check the roster.
Check the roster. How many is it? How many
Follow
body
the
bags do
rules.
we need? Right.
That's a shame, but I mean, let's narrow that down. Maybe next year, when we read this on This Day in History, that'll have been corrected.
Yeah, I bet it won't. That's going to be filed away now until next year. Just kind of like your Montezuma's Revenge.
Montezuma. Hey, now.
You ever been to E.B.'s Corner in Winona?
If I have, I don't recall it.
That's pretty memorable.
Yeah. Well, GLers, it's going to be in the 50s this weekend. Still time to wash a car before I put it away and cover it. How about that?
How about rake the leaves?
I don't do that.
I got a bunch of leaves I got to do something with.
I got
Okay.
I'm going to run up to Home Depot. Yep.
You know what you should do this weekend? You should subscribe to the
to
Garage Logic
EcoFund and get an electric bike.
or subscribe to the Garage Logic YouTube channel. We've had a lot of people have joined us on YouTube. It's been fantastic, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. We've got full segments, video shorts, behind-the-scenes footage, and also you can now watch Garage Logic live on YouTube each and every single
I
day,
want to avoid that prolapse.
right around noon. I don't blame you.
Shorten that time up.
You should also follow us along on all of our social media channels, which includes Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and sign up for the Garage Logic newsletter. Yeah, it's an email. Comes right to your inbox each and every day. And it also includes the most recent episode of the podcast and also a weekly note directly from the mayor himself. It's called Saturdays with Such. You'll get that tomorrow.
Cute.